Thanks a lot, Cedric. So welcome to this Liip talk about web performance. Today, I'm going to tell you a quick story of how I ended up being with you today, talking about the tools that we built during the last 4 years. So my name is Guillaume. I'm CEO and co-founder of Quanta, which is still a startup. We are based in Paris, as you can probably hear from from my French accent, and we have built a software meant to be used by merchants, by developers, and by DevOps to work better on this tricky subject of web performance. So it started. So I'm not going to tell you everything about my my life, but here's a quick story that leads to the idea. So when I'm a teenager, I start to be a young geek, and I discover the internet very soon, and I start coding HTML by hand, so without any tools to do this. Probably you've done that as well, I think. And then I decide to specialize in IT, and I enter the geekiest university in France, which is called Epitech. So you're basically in front of a computer doing 5 years. And I do different things, internships and jobs around the computer security. I do development. And after that, I start working in hosting. So when I work in hosting, I do many things, but mostly we are hosting services like emails, corporate websites, and it starts to be more and more e-commerce stores. So at that moment, the e-commerce is growing crazy, and I mean it's still growing today, but at that time it was pretty impressive. And at that time, I start working with my future business partner, Romain Lamaison, and we are facing more and more challenges to grow the e-commerce architectures of our customers. So we are facing some big problems, and the main one is that when you think about it, an e-commerce architecture is a complicated beast. It's a big machine or a mess, and every part of the chain is relying on each other. So just to give you an example, if you take Magento, it doesn't run autonomously. It's relying on PHP to run, which relies on Apache, and so on. And the machine is complicated, but also we have different teams handling different parts. So probably at Liip, you're probably more the blue part, the development team, and managing one part, but there is also a system team fine-tuning the Linux, Varnish, and so on, and other people handling the network at the data center, and the merchant itself, not to forget him, but actually the merchant is also making modifications, live modifications on the store, mostly from the back office, which has an impact as well on the performance. So what we have seen during those years is that when there is an issue on the store and it starts to slow down, it usually goes like this. So I don't know if this looks familiar to you, but I've seen that dozens of times. But the merchant is going to yell at everybody, "Okay, fix my problem." It's a nightmare. It's slow on my side, so it's like it's not very precise measure, and now everybody is a bit throwing the ball to each other because we all have a lot of things to do, and before knowing that the problem is or not is inside our part, it's hard to really dig into it. So the developers are going to blame the damn hoster that the the servers are not handling well the traffic, and of course, and I've been more on the orange side, inside a hosting company, blaming the developers that the code was really not optimized and that it was killing the performance. So it stayed in our mind at that time that we needed to fix that. So it's both a technical problem, but also an organizational problem. Then I become a consultant on web performance, and I start to face different situations with different customers, and the same thing happened. We have no real tool to help us to really see clearly where is the bottleneck, and we know that the bottleneck can be anywhere on any side of the chain. So in 2011, we saw that it became more and more important for e-commerce to have a very fast store. So to name just a few impacts of that, you probably know them, but to focus just on conversion rate and Google ranking, which would be the main two, Google starts to measure that 500 milliseconds of the optimization inside their page load time actually increase the revenue by 20% on their ad banners. And for Amazon, it's the biggest e-commerce example that measured that for each 100 milliseconds that they were gaining, that they were saving actually in their page load time, they were adding an additional 1% of revenue. So later on, we measure those kind of scale on real e-commerce stores also in Europe. And about SEO, if you don't know this study by Bill Hoffman, I can just recommend that you write that name and you Google for it after that. But he did an incredible study based on 2,000 websites, and he proved that the fastest you are and the better you're ranked by Google with time. And it's especially true in the first 10 pages of Google. So it's very important. And then we start Quanta. We self-fund doing consulting the first year, and we develop the first beta version. And 1 year later, we have our first paying customer, and we are very happy about that. We can start to do things for the real world and for real case studies. So it happens to become this. We see that with the tool, it changes not only the fact that we can detect automatically where a problem occurs inside the store, but also we see that it changes the reaction in between the teams inside the organizations. So to come back on our example of before, we see more of the merchants proactively telling in a less stressful way, okay, I see proactively that there is a slowdown on a specific step inside my sales funnel. So what can you do about that? Okay, we're on it. It looks like inside Quanta that it's specific. It's located inside a specific block inside the store. And but I'll show you that in the demo. It will be the plan is to do not a lot of explanations, but a lot of technical demo. And then we grew the business. Not much less revolution for us. We after that basically growing our business and having other case studies with our customers. Those are really comparable to the one of Amazon with its 100 milliseconds and 1% of revenue. We see that it works really well for the brands that optimized using the solution. And to name just one, which is quite impressive, is Etam. So I don't know if you know Etam, but they are kind of one of the biggest e-commerce store in France. They are totalizing around 200 million page views per year So it's really, really huge. And 20% of revenue for them, we were talking about millions of euros. So we were really happy to measure that with them. And now we are at 400 customers using the solution, spread a bit around the world. And the story that I wrote an ebook recently, and I sent an email to Benoit from Liip to spread a bit the word about it, and he said that's really cool subject. You need to come to Lausanne to talk about that and to talk about the solution and to show that to the team. So here I am, and if you don't have any questions at that point, we can go for a demo. What do you think? You're up, right? Okay. Perfect. So, all right. So, welcome to Quanta. So, just as an introduction, just be aware that we are looking right now as a real world. It's a real world data. It's live data, and as every demo in life, it's going to crash at some point. So, but I like to do it this way. It's cooler. So right now I'm in the availability section of the tool, and basically what the tool does is that it tracks with synthetic request. It tracks every minute, every step of the sales funnel. So it acts as a fake visitor coming to the website and crossing the sales funnel one step after another to make sure that each step is working well. Because if you check, for example, just the homepage, it's cool that the homepage is up, but what does uptime really means? In the eye of a merchant, uptime means my store is actually open for sale. So if I can't add to cart anymore because there is a little bug inside the add to cart feature, that's what they call downtime. So we decided to focus the solution on that uptime. And so the idea is to focus in a very pragmatic way on the biggest pages in terms of number of page views. When you look, maybe if you have taken a project that was not built at Liip and that came from another agency, and now the merchant wants you to take care of that. You might think, okay, where am I going to start to make the store faster? Well, at Quanta, we think strongly that it's important not to lose time in little places where nobody goes, and it's important to focus on the stuff that matters. So to do this, we link to Google Analytics, and we fetch the biggest pages in terms of number of page views. So for example, here we see that the home page is representing 5% of the whole page views. The cart is representing 3.5%. So we are going to focus on those particular steps, and we are going to add them in a synthetic scenario to make sure that we are in control of those steps all the time. So now that we have built our scenario, it looks like this. We are tracking now with synthetic request every step, and we see that it's not always stable, and you see that on every store. It's pretty rare to see a store that is really flat, because a store is really a living animal. There is some at some point a product is out of stock, so the cache is going to be refreshed, and then it's going to rebuild stuff. And you see that really clearly inside the graph, because you see some little spikes here. So for example, yesterday, you see that we have different errors at different points during the sales funnel. and I can zoom inside that period of time to better understand what really happens. And I see two different things. I see that I have some events. So there was a code deployment just right before the downtime starts, and I have a Magento cache clear. So actually, I have two of them, and I have the exact minute when it happened. So we know that an action has been done on the store, and then it leaded to a downtime. Now, what I want is, for example, to shrink my page load time. So I've seen that the cart page. So just back on the on my dashboard, if I go a bit under here, I'm representing my sales funnel, and I see that the cart page is in red, and it's around 1 second. So here, just to be very precise on what I'm talking about, 1 second is the time that was spent on the backend side. So the time that was spent, which is called the time to first byte. I'm going to optimize this. So back on my cart page, over here, I'm going to isolate that step, and I'm going to now understand where was that time spent during 1 second. So I'm clicking more details, and now I can see how much time was spent inside the CMS. So in that case, it's Magento, and how much time was spent outside of Magento. So it's key already at that point that we know for sure that this time is a development issue, and then we need to optimize the code. So to optimize now Magento, we're going to go even deeper. So to be able to do this, we built a profiler that inserts into PHP and that tracks what's happening inside Magento and at each layer of the code of the execution of the code, and we track that every minute. As you can imagine, it was quite challenging to be able to both profile so that we have enough information, and also at the same time not to make the machine slower, because what we wanted was that we wanted to have a profiler that can run in production. So most of our customers are really using the solution in production, and the reason is that in production there is some problem that can happen. I'm going to avoid some bad words, and those problems are very complicated to reproduce in pre-production or staging environment. So what we want is really to go deeper into what happened in production. And now we see the whole stack of execution inside Magento. So it might be familiar for Magento developers who are following us today. And we see, for example, that the loading time of Magento is pretty flat. So there is no issue here. But the layout rendering is quite heavy. So we are going to go into more details. And then what the profiler is doing here is that it's listing the time that was spent inside all the blocks of code that are inside the layout rendering time. And so the idea, without going into too much details, is that you can really see in a very, very pragmatic way is always, okay, which step is taking the most time? Okay, it's the category page. Inside that category page, what is taking the most time? Okay, it's Magento. Inside Magento, what is taking the most time? Oh, that's this feature. And now I can select the blocks, so I can also know where they are inside my code, and I can show them on a timeline, and then work on those blocks. So, for example, checkout.cart is representing about 30% of the whole time that is spent at that layer inside Magento. So that's what we call a quick win, is that if we are able to optimize this, we're going to save a third of the time. And we see interestingly as well, that some blocks are appearing just at some points, and some other times they are not rendered at all. So it's very cool as well to be able to debug how the cache systems are working, like which block is actually using its cache or not, and to track that also in time, so I can go back in time also and look at the last week or last month, and I can zoom back and see if it, for example, I'm taking this little block and I see it just appeared recently in the beginning of September. All right, so now that that we have seen that, what's also important is to be able to link those events with what's happening on other parts of the chain. So to do this, we are gathering as well many metrics coming from the world of hosting, CPU, memory, disk, and so on. And if I select all the servers, I'm going to see that I have metrics, interesting metrics for Apache, MySQL, and I can really follow what each service inside the chain is doing. So for example, you can correlate what happens when there is a cron job, or like in that example, there would be like, yeah, you have some reindex inside Magento. So to be able to fetch those data, what we do is that because we are inserted with our profiler, we can track also the number of events that occur inside Magento. So we have a web service that checks that regularly, and at the same time, we are gathering the hosting metrics. And when you look at that, it's very clear that Magento has a huge impact on the server. As you can see, it's not that simple, because when I was talking about this organizational problem and technical problem, is that sometimes you have one problem is actually making the other part heavier. So it's really important to detect what is the root of the problem. And here we have our, and I can list my 300 reindex if I want, but I'll fast forward on that. Okay, maybe a last example, and then after I'll go to your questions, and I will be able to go back to the tool to answer them. There is different things that we are offering to better link the data, and this one is really nice to be able to follow the impact of your traffic on the performance of your store. There will be a bit more to understand when your customer, so the merchant, has launched a marketing campaign, and they have like multiplied by 10 the number of visitors during 3 minutes. Of course, the store is going to behave differently. And before, what we were doing is that we were taking our phone and we were calling everybody. Have you done something on the store? Have you been flushing the cache? Have you been rebooting a server? Have you been launching a marketing campaign? Now everything is inside the tool, and you can follow if your traffic has an impact on your page load time. And in that example, we see that the traffic has pretty much no impact. It's pretty stable. And if we look at the page load time during the night and during the moment when we have the most page views, it's actually pretty flat. So that's a sane indicator that the size of the architecture is enough to host all the visitors that are coming to the store. And if you want to go further with that, there is also load testing capabilities to be able to measure what is the limit, and you can like replay a huge number of visitors coming to the store, and to be able to force the limit and also to better understand the problems either inside the code or inside the architecture. I don't know where we are considering the timing. 5 minutes. Oh, it's perfect. All right. So, do you guys have any questions so far?
I guess I will start the questions. Yeah, I guess. So Magento, but you mentioned that it was one of the CMSs or one of the products that you would support. Where can we inject that? What's the scope? Where or what other products can we use that for? Is it limited to Magento, or do you have other integrations?
Okay, so from what you have seen in the demo, you have around 70% of the whole solution today is compatible with any e-commerce solution. To have a deeper view inside the execution of the CMS. So that's the 30% I'm talking about. As of today, we are compatible with Magento and Magento 2 recently. We are planning this year to add a better understanding, a deeper view as well for other e-commerce solutions. Right now, you have a first view on any solution that runs on PHP, but it's more basic than what you have seen with Magento. You will be able to see which step is has a problem and if it's inside PHP or not, and it will stop at that level.
Thanks.
So following on this question, is it open source and possible for us developers to develop this kind of integration with another system?
Yeah, completely. And we actually would be really happy about that. We have open sourced our profiling module, and we have also an open way of growing also our solution is that we have APIs that enables you to gather data that are coming from Quanta into your own system, and also you can push data from your system to Quanta. So to give you an example of that, for example, is you have some cron job at night that is adding new stock to the e-commerce store, and you know that it's a tricky part of the store. So you can add some API calls during the execution of this cron job to make sure that this goes back inside Quanta, and you will be able to trigger if the cron job has an impact on the front end part. So once more, another way to really to gather every information we can to work better together on web performance.
Awesome, thanks.
Cool.
I have a question too here from Zurich.
Okay.
You mentioned the integration with Google Analytics. How does it work to track the most popular pages? Is it you just hook it up to Analytics and then it tracks those pages, or what do I have to do there?
So it's completely automatic. What we do is that we inside the dashboard, inside the Quanta dashboard, we have a menu, configuration menu, that asks you to share your analytics data with us. So we are just like another app that links to Google Analytics. And then we synchronize the data that we need that are related to web performance. So typically the top pages, the top pages that are the most viewed and their performance. So that's completely automatic and comes back to the dashboard without any action, specific action on your side.
Thank you.
No worries.
One more question. This application, does it live on the same server as the shop, or is it as a service, or? Yeah.
it's full SaaS, so it's not running on the architecture. The only thing that you need to install is a package. So we are packaged on the biggest distributions like Red Hat, Debian, and so on. You need to install that package, and it's going to run a very lightweight agent that that brings back the important data to inside Quanta. But the whole thing is outside of the scope of your architecture.
We have another question from the YouTube channel.
Okay.
It's still a Liipper. Is asking what the difference is to Blackfire.
Okay. Interesting question. I happen to know the founder of Blackfire, as maybe you know they are French as well. Okay, Blackfire, Quanta is really meant to solve these production issues. So you, as you have understood, you plug it into your production environment on your servers, and you have everything on the same page working on those production issues. Blackfire happens before that and is more helping developers to debug their code before it's shipped to production. So and it will be of course I'm not going to pitch Blackfire, and I'm not an expert on it, but I guess that on some cases it will bring an even more detailed view inside the code. But the drawback is that it's meant to be used on your development environment, and so it leaves you without seeing what goes in production. So probably you can use both tools if you want to really be very safe with your web performance on the whole journey of the development.
One question from Zurich again. So why is not everyone using this tool?
Thanks for that question. I like it. That's a good question. It's as you have seen from maybe the beginning of the presentation, we are growing really fast, and I guess it takes time as well to just spread the word that the solution exists. There is so many stores everywhere in the world that don't know that we exist, so we are working very strongly on that. And I personally focused in the last year more on marketing and spending time in Imagine Commerce, Meet Magento events everywhere in Europe. But if you feel that if you feel like spreading the word with us, we will thank you a lot for that, of course.
I guess we're done with the questions. So thank you very much, Guillaume, for your presentation. It was very interesting. There were lots of questions and a good finish.
Thank you. Maybe just one last word to conclude. So thank you everybody for being here and being here remotely as well. I was quite happy to talk with you. Like I was saying to Cedric, I'm happen now to be living half in Paris and Lausanne. So I was really happy to be with you today. And also, if you are curious about how you can use it in the real world project that you face today, I will be also very happy to give you a trial for months with the whole thing, so that you can play with it, and also to send you the link of the open source profilers that we've been releasing. All right, thank you everybody.